So what's up guys? So let's talk about the strategy used by Ferrari for the Barcelona Grand Prix, which resulted them with a massive win over Mercedes in the Barcelona Grand Prix. So overall in the race they were dominating entirely. Ferrari was overshadowing Mercedes, and the strategy of Ferrari made Mercedes to make many mistakes, and they were panicking all the time. Usually Mercedes won't make any mistakes. They are the number one teams in making good strategies. Whatever the strategies, tire strategy, undercut, overcut, or the energy management strategy, whatever it is, they are the best in doing strategies. But yesterday, Ferrari did a strategy that forced Mercedes to do mistake in their strategy. A team which does not make any single mistake in doing strategies, even they did a mistake. So Ferrari did something unbelievable. And for the Lewis Hamilton fans, the most delightful day in the entire season so far. So let us talk about the strategy. So first thing first, the Ferrari started Lewis Hamilton with the soft tires, and Charles Leclerc started in the medium. So the idea was to give Lewis Hamilton a three-stop strategy. When we talk about Ferrari's strategy, it is equally important to talk about Mercedes' strategy, especially for George. George was on two-stop strategy because George started on a medium, alright? So the Mercedes' strategy was to start George with a medium because he got the pole position in the qualifiers. So they were planning like George continue the race as the race leader for 45 laps, and by the 45 laps he would make a lead by 10 seconds or 12 seconds, like that. George make a big difference, big gap between the driver in the second position, and by the lap of 45 they will call George the pit and maybe change the tire to hard tires or something like that. They were planning like that. Also Kimi was on the same strategy as George's. Alright, so like two-stop strategy. Kimi also started on medium. So they were thinking like it will be good to get two Mercedes on the podiums. So the Mercedes' plan was to keep Kimi and George in their respective position as of the qualifiers. So but the Ferrari chose to do something different. Alright, Ferrari's strategy was a three-stop pit strategy. So Lewis started on a soft tire. There is another driver who started on soft tire on the top order, that is Max. Max also started in soft tires. So the question arises, almost all the drivers on the grid were having medium tires or hard tires. Why Lewis was having a soft tire? Yeah, in particularly why soft tire? The significance of soft tire is that soft tire is more light and smooth, and so if Lewis could take the overtake over George in the first turn itself, he could get a clean air in the front row, and he could go more quicker than George because George was on a medium tire. So they can build a reasonable gap between George, right? Because he is the race leader. He got the fresh air, so he could build a significant gap between George as a leader of the race. So that was the strategy of the Ferrari. That is why they started Lewis with the soft tire. But the initial strategy of Ferrari got backfired because both Mercedes drivers had a pretty good start of the race, because George didn't make any mistake in the start of the race, and he got a good pace in the first turn itself. So the plan of Ferrari to start Lewis with the soft tire backfired. Also, Lewis couldn't extract the exact power of the car in the soft tires because he was behind George, and the dirty air of George's car is in contact with Lewis's car. You guys know the difference between dirty air, clean air, and slipstream, all that, right? If you don't know about that, I have made a separate video of those things. The link is in the I button. So now Lewis is behind George. Lewis is in contact with the dirty air from George's car. As a result, he couldn't extract the exact power of his Ferrari with the soft tire because he is in contact with the dirty air of George's car. Okay, that was the initial strategy of Ferrari team for Lewis. And as soon as the race started, the Ferrari realized that their plans was not working well. So they called Lewis to the pit and changed the soft tires to a medium tire. So the second pit stop was in lap 42. Even at that time, George was leading the race. Right, there was a significant amount of gap between Lewis and George. Even at that time, we couldn't say that Ferrari have outsmarted Mercedes or like that. We cannot entirely say like that because George was doing very well. Also, Kimi was doing very well. Not compared to the other races, but he is still doing good with the strategies. Okay, even though the Hamilton's pit stop doesn't make any big changes to the race course, but it brought a massive change to the strategy between the Mercedes drivers, because George now have to defend himself from Lewis and his teammate Kimi Antonelli, because he was pitted for the very first time after Lewis's pit stop, and they have changed his medium tires to a hard one, and now he is in a bit of confusion. He have to stop Lewis from overtaking him or taking advantage over him. Also, Kimi is also attacking him. But before the pit stop, means before lap 28, Kimi was told not to fight with George, because last races we have seen George and Kimi, they were constantly fighting for the positions. My Toto have told Kimi not to do that again, but he have tried that multiple times in this race also. The point here is, because Mercedes pitted George at that time, George was in a little bit confusion, and also now we have to face two rivals. That's the most tricky thing in that race for George. So by lap 30, Mercedes have called Kimi Antonelli to the pit, and this is the opportunity for Lewis to take the lead, and he have done it, and now he is the race leader. And even now, Hamilton was not safe as the race leader, because there's still chance for George, Kimi to take the lead back. But that's the moment where it's kind of lucky, or I don't know, the racing gods have supported Lewis at that day. Our hero from Aston Martin team, Mr. Fernando Alonso, got crashed, and as a result, we have got another safety car. All right, as always. As every races, whenever there is a safety car or a virtual safety car, every team's pitted their drivers. So the virtual safety car or safety car are like the cheap pit stops for the teams. Lewis take that advantage, and he changed his medium tires to hard tires. And now the game entirely changed to Lewis's side, because that very pit stop changed the entire race course and mind of the fans, the mind of the drivers. They understood one thing: Lewis have got it. That's a moment where that we could say to ourselves, okay, Lewis have got a chance, or he have got more success percentage. He could win it, because when Lewis Hamilton was in the pit and he is running through the pit lane, George didn't pit at that time. So here's the crucial part, because when Lewis was in pit stop, the Ferrari called him in and changed his tires to hard tires. Mercedes didn't choose George to pit at that time, because they thought that George had got a shot to take the leadership back. So he stayed on track. And now Lewis have done the pit stop, and he is moving through the pit lane. And now Lewis is coming out of the pit lane. And now's the point where we will say like this. There's a 50-50 chance. If George is in a good pace and he have got the confidence, he would easily overtake Hamilton as the race leader. But here's what we will call the experience of a 7-time world champion. Lewis have managed it like a pro. He have easily hold his position, and firmly he just glided through the pit lane and through the track and maintained his position as the race leader. And in that very moment, from a driver like Lewis Hamilton, a guy with a lot of experience, Lewis Hamilton maintaining his position as the race leader, and that gave me that goosebumps as we were seeing Lewis Hamilton's time in Mercedes, those hammer time radio conversations. We got that nostalgic moment back. So even at that time, the Mercedes drivers, Kimi and George, were fighting. Kimi was making a lot of mistakes. He was going out of the bounds, white bounds, which he is not supposed to do. It was surprising to see Mercedes losing their game, like losing their strategies. They're going back on their strategies. It was surprising, because it is difficult for a team like Mercedes to miss their strategy, to go back from their strategy. It is very rare to see them doing that. I'm sad for Mercedes, and at the same time happy for Ferrari. Also, after the post-race press meets and the recent interviews, Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur confirmed that Lewis Hamilton have contributed a lot to design and build the front suspensions, front wings, and the side pods. And for the upgrades, Lewis Hamilton's input have been off and on track. He have done a lot of work back in the factory and in the track. He have done a great job. So that's the absolute masterclass from Ferrari. And now arises another question. Lewis Hamilton won a race with Ferrari. Does that mean that Charles Leclerc in verge of any pressure, or he is in verge of being dumped by Ferrari or something like that? I would say no. Charles still got the chance to prove himself. Yes, it is true, he will get all the pressure from the mechanics, from the team principals, fans, because Lewis have won a race and he have just joined Ferrari last year only, and he have done a great job with Ferrari, and that will bring a lot of pressure to Charles. But on that subject, what I have to say is, I think Charles will prove himself, because Charles, for this race, for Barcelona race, Charles have chose the setup same as Hamilton. He have slightly copied Hamilton's setup, especially with the brakes and all. So he is trying to cope up with Hamilton. Okay, guys, that's about the absolute strategy game by Ferrari. That's what I understood from the race, or what I understood after watching the interviews and the technical talks of the professionals about the Ferrari's victory. That's what I got. If you guys got something about the Ferrari's victory or the technical side or whatever, just comment below and let me know about that. So I will see you in the next video about the next Grand Prix or any other subject related to motorsports. So see you all soon. Bye. Next race is in Austria, the Red Bull Ring, the home race of Red Bull Formula 1 team. So I hope they will bring a lot of upgrades to Austria. They have to be elegant before their fans and all. It's a good sign for Red Bull, I think, because now they have two headaches. They have to hold Max Verstappen, and also they have to prove themselves to the fans and to the investors and everyone. Let's see what Red Bull is planning to do. So that's it, guys. Bye.